Hello, this is Christian Okoye, former Kansas City Chiefs. You are listening to Grueling Truth.
Welcome, everybody, to the Grueling Truth NFL Pick'em Show. We are reviewing the Super Bowl tonight. Remember, we are sponsored by Gridiron Mo, a new interactive football app where you get to call what the offense or defense should do during a live NFL game and see what all other fans have called also. So make sure you check out Gridiron Mo at www.gridironmo. So this year we tied just like last year on the Pick'em Show. Me and Matt ended up even. Matt, yeah, I mean, you want to say anything for yourself since you didn't have the balls to go against my pick last week?
You didn't have the balls to go for the win. What are you talking about?
I did go for the win. I picked first, Matt. And I'll tell you this. I don't know what Luis and the other guests think.
But you knew I was picking New England.
I think this tie should be broken by whoever got closest to the final score, and I did say 34-27.
I had 31-24.
Yeah, so you admit that you've lost. All right, let's go ahead and get to our guests tonight. First up, we've got from Illinois, Tom Pollin, who will be doing a Chicago Bears podcast starting soon. How you doing tonight, Tom?
Hey, doing great. Glad to be here.
All right, and we've got his co-host, Jamel Legister from Toledo, correct, Jamel?
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Jamel?
How you guys doing tonight? I'm doing great. Right. Down. How you guys doing?
And, of course, as always, we saved the best for last, which Matt went first, so you know what we think of Matt. But help me welcome to the show, former three-time Pro Bowler for the Arizona Cardinals, Luis Sharpe. How you doing, Luis?
I am doing excellent. Very nice. Very good to be with you, gentlemen, on tonight.
Now, Luis, you picked the Patriots too, didn't you?
You know what, Mike, I got to be honest with you. I had mixed emotions. I picked Atlanta early in the week. I think I picked Atlanta when I talked to you guys. But then later on in the week, I was feeling some kind of way about the Patriots, and I switched my allegiance to the Patriots, believe it or not.
All right, so let's go ahead and start breaking this game down. I mean, we'll start with Luis. Luis, what did you think? I mean, just give us your overall opinion of the game.
I thought it was the most excellently played, most exciting Super Bowl, at least in our lifetime. You know, I saw Atlanta came out like gangbusters and got it done in the first half. At halftime, 21-3, I'm thinking, you know, never in Super Bowl history has a team come back and won a Super Bowl with a 2-touchdown deficit. So I pretty much thought the game was over.
Yeah, my wife did too, because we're sitting there. She never watches football. And she gets home from work, and it's like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and she sits down. It's 21-3. She watched for a little bit, and she said, well, this is over. I'm going to go do the dishes. And I told her, this is Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I mean, if anybody's ever going to pull something off like that, Matt, it's Brady and Belichick.
Oh, you know it.
My apologies.
You know that.
My apologies for underestimating.
You still underestimate the greatness? You
Yeah,
still underestimate. Wow. I feel like there's only two people in the NFL
Jamel,
looking at a 30-point. Is there?
Yeah, but Jamel, at 28-3, I mean, I'm thinking Tom Brady could still pull this off because he's Tom Brady, but I really didn't think that he would pull it off. I just thought that it's Tom Brady and he could do it, which is why I kept watching the game. But I mean, Matt, you want to talk a little bit about Brady and Belichick and the come-from-behind win?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I want to, you know, get right on what Luis said. You know, to me, this was the best Super Bowl play that I've ever seen. And what I really liked about it was I thought Atlanta's defense was so impressive. The way that they were able to hold the Patriots down in the first half, get the pick six, and it really looked like they were going to have not just a chance to win, but a really, really good chance to win. And I was the same way. I mean, everyone, you know, we had people over, and everyone was like, this is going to be over. I'm like, you guys, this is Brady and Belichick. It's not over yet. They get two quick scores. It was 28-9. They get two quicks. They get, you know, a score and a stop, and we got a game. And all of a sudden, as we know, at the end of the third quarter happened, and the Falcons just were not able to do enough on offense in the second half. And then to me, the turning point in the game is when Julio Jones made that fantastic catch with like 4 minutes to go. if they kick the field goal, not on first down, but if they, run like 3 times and just try to get, run the clock and kick the field goal, I mean, there's 11 points with 3 minutes to go. I mean, even Brady's going to have a hard time with that one. But, boy, I mean, what a game.
Well, see, Jamel, to me, the turning point, and that was a huge point, but the turning point to me is 8 minutes left in the game. They've got a 3rd and 1 on their own side of the field. They get a sack, they fumble, and that's when I actually thought the Patriots were going to win the game, because when you're down by that many points, I mean, I know everybody talks about was it a great, comeback or a great collapse. You can't really have a great comeback from that many points behind without the other team having a great collapse. So, I mean, to me, the biggest thing was, number one, at 3rd and 1, with the running game you've got and the offensive line you got and the way they block for the run, why are you even throwing the ball in that situation?
All right, I'm going to tell you why. It's overthinking Bill Belichick. You know that he is the Zen master. You know that he's going to stay calm and make the right call. Kyle Shanahan tried to outthink him in that situation. And you're not going to outthink 1 + 1. It's always going to be 2. Just run the ball.
Yeah, because if you look at that play, Jamel, I mean, the play was to be a deep pass, too, because they had a guy running straight down the middle of the field who was open. But the thing was, they didn't have time to get it back.
You have your worst blocking back there. You leave DeMarco in there, DeMarco blows up Hightower. This game's over. We don't even talk about this.
Yeah, or
you hand the ball off to DeMarco on a dive. You hand him off on a dive.
Yeah, I mean, you're 3rd and 1.
You gotta have some gusto. 4th and inches, I'm still going for it. I'm ending this Super Bowl. I can't let them see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, you bring that up. The thing that I remember the most there, it just backfired on Belichick. But if you remember the game against Peyton Manning and the Colts in the regular season where he had a 4th and 1 on his own 30, and he went for it, and they asked him after the game, why did you do that? And he said, because I knew if I gave him the ball there, we were going to lose the game anyway.
But Belichick does that kind of thing to begin with. He doesn't mind taking chances like that.
Yeah, which is what makes him a great coach. He's not afraid to lose the game.
I'm fairly certain Belichick has a lot more confidence in his defense than Shanahan has in anyone on that offense. You might have an all-pro receiver. You might have the MVP at quarterback. But Belichick goes and grabs these 5th and 6th round guys that he trusts with his kids. Come on. He knows what he's doing.
The thing with Shanahan, he still could have shut that game out. The Patriots closed it to within 1 score, and they have the ball on the 23. That's in Matt Bryant's wheelhouse. And all you have to do is run the ball 2 more times, either force the Patriots to take another 2 timeouts, or you're going to run a minute and a half off the clock and get your field goal and make it a 2-point game again. And that was just ridiculous play calling by Kyle Shanahan there.
Yeah, and Luis, I mean, we had this discussion, I think 2 weeks ago. You weren't on with us, but I think it was Oz Davis that asked me and Brian Schmidt on what the difference is. How do you know if you outcoach somebody? I know Matt remembers this conversation. And to me, when I've coached a football game, I've been outcoached. I mean, I coached at a conference championship game, indoor football league in Marion, Ohio, a couple of years ago, and it was a game that got away from me. And that game was over so quick, you don't even realize it. And what it seemed to me was that second half, especially the last 3 minutes of the 3rd quarter and the entire 4th quarter, to me, I'd bet you almost anything, Kyle Shanahan's in a blur on what happened on it. I think it started to get out of control on him, and he could not rein it back in.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, Mike, hindsight is always 20/20. Obviously, as a player, as a coach, we can maybe study a little more. We can maybe look at the research, have looked at the research a little better. And from that standpoint, from that perspective, you would say, hey, you know what? In that situation, I could have, maybe should have done something differently. Maybe it would have affected the outcome. I agree. Run the football, run the clock down, kick the field goal. But then again, who would have thought that the Patriots would come back from a 20-plus point deficit?
You have Devontae Freeman, who's been running the ball effectively the entire game. Just taking his way up and down the field. It doesn't matter how do you go from 2nd and 11 to fourth down and 33 yards? It's just, that's the big reason why you lose that kind of game.
Yeah, and Matt, the big thing, we talked about this off air, but when I'm watching the game, the thing I notice is this. Number one, they only ran the ball 5 times once they're up 28-3, but the other thing is this. They only snapped the ball with the play clock inside of 10 seconds one time in the last 18 minutes of the game. The play I talked about on the 3rd and 1 where you get the sack fumble, that play clock was at 19 seconds when they snapped the ball, Matt.
You're right.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. You have to have different clock management there, and that's where, I think the experience of Dan Quinn on that, and obviously Kyle Shanahan, both of them, just inexperience. I think they were just used to just putting that foot on the accelerator so hard all year, and I think they just. I don't know what it was. I understand a lot of the play calls because they were really going for the kill, but it just wasn't smart. And
but at 28-3 to go for the kill, at 28-3 to go for the kill, you make the other team use their timeouts and you run the clock.
Right.
Of
That's
course.
how you kill.
Of course. No question. And that's what they should have done. But I think the mentality was when it was like 28-9, and then 28-16, I think it was.
Yeah, they're thinking if we score another touchdown, this is over.
All we have to do is score one more touchdown, and we win the game. I think that was what going through their mind. That's the only thing I could think of.
I think that's the problem. It's all we have to do. It's not all we have to do. When you have your foot on someone's throat, you step on it to the bone break. You should have went 55-6, 55-3.
Well, that's what they were doing. I think that's what they were doing. They were going downfield.
New England,
and I think that's why they lost.
Never followed Julio. You had Logan Ryan on Julio. You abused that matchup. You go to Julio 2 times a quarter deep.
Yeah, Julio only caught 4 passes in the entire game.
Exactly. You abuse that matchup. It's Logan Ryan.
But Belichick is going to take something away from you each game, and he's going to make you beat him another way, and that's what he did with Julio. Julio Jones still made an outstanding catch. In the fourth quarter.
Out of his 4 catches, 3 of them were great catches.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Huge catch. But he's going to take one of your top weapons away from you. He did it to the Steelers. He took Antonio Brown away from Ben Roethlisberger. That's how it works.
Yeah. And 2 different receivers. Antonio Brown does a lot of his damage closer to the line of scrimmage than Julio. We're talking about somebody with, immense God-given talent. You have to continuously feed him. Feed him. He showed you that he couldn't be stopped in man coverage. You guys went zone.
The thing is this, though, Jamil. If you look at his 4 catches, every one of them had to be almost a perfect throw to get him the ball.
Right.
Because they were playing, they were man pressing him. They were covering him over the top with the corner. Mm-hmm. And
are we talking about the MVP? Are we talking about the MVP? Are we talking about the MVP throwing on the ball?
Yeah, we're talking about the MVP, and you're also talking about.
So then it better be close to perfect. You're the MVP. This is the biggest game of your career. Make it happen.
The problem was this. They got out-coached in the second half. The first half, Dan Quinn did something the Falcons very rarely do. He played man press. He played with a rover at safety, and I think he confused Brady. The problem was when you go into halftime there against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, if you don't change what you're doing, they're going to come out and they're going to pick that apart.
That's what they did.
What I've always said, it was more the 4-man pressure. It's the same thing that the Giants used to beat them. If you can just get there with 4 men and keep everyone back, you can hurt Tom Brady. He sees ghosts out there, but you got to get there. And those guys wore down. Garrett, as great as he played, wore down.
Team, as you said, the Falcons wore down. That Giants team that beat them in Super Bowl 42, that team was 6 or 7 deep on the defensive line.
That was the other thing. The Falcons just didn't have a lot of depth there, and they were on the field way too long.
Way too long. But again, those are those 3 and outs. You're throwing the ball entirely too much. Save your defense. Right. Give them a chance.
All right, so question for Luis. And I think this is something that stood out to me was Alex Mack playing on the broken fibula, I guess it was reported before the game. You watch him in the first half. I'm watching it with my son, and my son was like, man, he's not even limping. I said, wait till you get to that half-hour halftime. See what he comes out in the second half and does. Second half, he comes out on the field, and he's limping immediately just to get into the huddle. And he got pretty much dominated the rest of the second half. So I think a lot of this game was the fact that Alex Mack was not Alex Mack in that second half.
Oh, no question about it. And, I mean, it was a courageous effort to go out there, play probably the biggest game of his career. You know what I'm saying? Coming from Cleveland, that was courageous for him to do whatever it took. And I'm sure he got some kind of pain injection. But
yeah, and the problem with the pain injection is they're going to give it to him about an hour before the game, so it gets him through the first half. But unlike a regular season game, you got a 25, 30-minute halftime to sit through. There's no way you're going to be all right coming out after that.
Yeah, and maybe they changed protocol, but when I played, you know, not only did you get shot up a half hour, 45 minutes before the game time, but you took another shot at halftime. Now, you know, with all of the changes and medical care being relevant, very relevant, NFL looking at, maybe they changed that. But obviously he wasn't the same player in the second half that he was in the first.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the player that impressed me the most on that field the entire game, over Brady and everybody, was Deion Jones, the linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons, Tom. I mean, that guy was all over the place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But you lost me there. I'm sorry. You know, go ahead and get somebody else on this one.
Yeah, your phone's breaking up pretty bad. Jamil, you want to take that?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. All right. You figure if you're going to keep the Falcons spread out, you're going to need that RH factor, those running hit guys. Keanu O'Neal, Deion Jones, they exemplify that. They're both sub 4 or 5 guys at positions that you don't normally see that at, and they hit. He covered sideline to sideline. You take away those maybe, 11, 12 catches from Deion Lewis, from White. And now you're looking at it again. Well, we keep saying a different game, but it would have been a different game. But you can't have him covering Lewis. Then he's checking back for Bennett. He's worried about Edelman crossing in front of his face. He left too much on his plate.
Yeah, because the Patriots have no real stud wide receivers. I think Edelman is. I think Edelman's a little bit like Steve Smith. He just makes plays, especially in big games. But you got 5 guys on that field that you have to defend against the Patriots.
Well, the Patriots use their wide receivers like running backs. They use their passing game almost like a running game, which is how they get away with throwing so much, especially in the fourth quarter, and still being able to move the ball down the field the way they did.
Yeah, but, I mean, overall, I think the most impressive thing about this whole thing is Belichick and Brady have been in this conversation for, 15 or 16 years now. I mean, the only team I remember holding on to it for that long, and they didn't win near as many Super Bowls, was Tom Landry and the Cowboys, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. The way this has gone for the Patriots, the way they've been able to keep the roster stocked with enough talent to compete for Super Bowls year in and year out, win in different styles, different ways, different personnel. It's just a testament to just how great Brady, Belichick, and the whole Patriots organization really is. A lot of people say, well, we're sick of the Patriots and that. This really is truly a great dynasty, and they've won in many different ways. I don't know. What else can you say? This really, to me, if they were both to retire now, there's just I just know where I think they stand. But they could still go and win more championships because, I don't really see this slowing down if they don't want it to.
Yeah, Luis, I think this could go on for a few more years.
How old is Brady? Brady is what, a year short of 40?
He's going to be 40 next season.
I don't think it matters. He does not look like he's slowing down.
Actually, I did a study on it a while ago. Quarterbacks start breaking down around 37. There's only been 2 quarterbacks who's ever successfully led their team to a 500 season after the age of 40. So you got to be a freak of nature. And I'll give you, Brady's a freak of nature. But, he's not going to be able to keep it going for another 1 or 2, maybe 1 more season, 2 seasons.
Well, I think a lot of that just has to do with how much he gets hit in the next year or two, too. But then in the Super Bowl, he took a ton of hits, and he played through it and played even better at the end of the game.
That's the thing. Look how many hits the guy took.
But, again, how many times have we seen great players wake up one day and they're all of a sudden 40 years old? It can happen to Brady. He's not immune to it either.
Exactly.
It happens. And a lot of guys just wake up one day. I just watched it happen to Carson Palmer this year. He went from almost MVP-like numbers a year ago. He went from MVP-like numbers a year ago, and he woke up this year and what? He was damn near 50 years old.
Yeah, but he's been injured so many times in his career.
Absolutely.
That's the thing with Brady.
You had the one
year in
2008, 2006, somewhere around there.
It won't be injured.
I don't think Brady's dealing with shoulder problems or knee problems.
This is going to be a 40-year-old man waking up every day in New England, 10-degree weather, playing in these games. You get fragile, you can break. He can have every space-age sleeping chamber you want. You can't stop Father Time. You can't beat him.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it done yet.
You're exactly right. Because what happens is it's not necessarily him staying in shape and him having the outstanding diet. You get to a point where the reflexes slow down. You can't put the ball where you need to put it. You see the open receiver, but it takes you that extra split second to release the ball, and that's something you can't overcome. With workouts, with physical regimens and that kind of thing.
All right, Luis, what do you think?
Well, I'm not going to go against Brady and Belichick. I've made that mistake far too often, and I think Belichick is a genius. I think Tom Brady has still 2, maybe 3 years left before Father Time catches up. And there are personnel people there in New England. They know what they're doing. So, I believe they can go for a 6th, maybe even 7th 2 years from now, Super Bowl victory.
Yeah, and the thing is, with Belichick, he may not even need Brady to do that.
Right. The hell of it is with Belichick, you got the smartest coach in the league. You got the smartest. His assistants are 2 of the smartest in the league. Everybody on that team is so well prepared when they go into a game, and that's because of Belichick. He holds everybody to his standard.
Yeah, I know we had Mark Edwards on, the old New England fullback, the year before or the week before the championship game against the Steelers, and he told us that if you're walking down the hall and Belichick's coming the other way, he said a lot of guys will turn and get the hell out of there because he's going to come up and ask them something about the game plan, and they better know the answer.
Yeah, right.
He holds himself to a high standard, and he holds his players to the same standard, and that's why that team is so good. You can beat the Patriots, but you're not going to outsmart them. No,
and if you beat them, it's because usually injuries.
You out-toughed them.
Yeah, you out-toughed them, and out-toughing them is damn near impossible to do, and Atlanta found that out.
The only person I've seen close with that formula was Rex Ryan. Those couple decent years in New York, he out-toughed them. That's the only way you are. The Ravens, they had a good run going up New England, beating them in the playoffs. They out-toughed them the same way. Punch them in the mouth and see what they really got.
But see, none of those other teams sustain it. Belichick sustains it. He keeps it going.
Baltimore, they had their number for a couple seasons and stole a Super Bowl in the middle of that.
Right.
They got close the other year. So, if you can get there with 4 guys, and every time they catch the ball, you got to punish them. I don't know if you remember, but Boomerville and Suggs, they made it an effort to even when the whistle was dead, they would just touch Brady just to let him know we're going to be here all day.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Just touch him. That's it.
And you saw when Atlanta, their pass rush dropped off in the second half, and that's when Brady, got that sharpness back and got his passing attack back.
I mean,
nobody was
like any quarterback. Any quarterback can operate in a 7-on-7 if no one's coming towards you. So, of course, the numbers are going to shoot through the roof when you take the pressure off. That's going to be any quarterback.
Yeah, but you got guys like Brady. They're not as good if they get pressure because nobody is, but he still makes the plays. And, I mean, most quarterbacks, you talked about Carson Palmer. You hit Carson Palmer like that in the first half of a game, there's no comeback in the second half.
That's going to be an all-time worst game for him.
Yeah, because he has to completely fall apart because of that. where you get guys like him. I mean, other guys that were like that. I mean, to me, Brett Favre and Peyton Manning were like that. If you beat the crap out of them in the first half, the game was over.
Yes.
Can't say that about Brett. I won't say that about Brett.
I can't say it about Brett because he lost all the time when it mattered. I mean, the man threw 5 game-losing interceptions in playoff games.
And as a gunslinger, you know he's going to win and lose you the game that way. So I guess you live and die with it.
Well, gunslingers don't make very good quarterbacks, though. Not when you want to win championships.
The thing about Brett Favre is you get him down early in games. Anytime he got down to 15 points, 0-56 lifetime. He don't come back most of the time.
Well, and the scary thing about Brady is that was the 4th time he's come back from 21 points or more down.
That's amazing.
I know, because I'm sitting there watching the Super Bowl and say, well, Brady's been down 21 or more points 3 times in his career and come back and won. And, I mean, most guys, has Aaron Rodgers ever come back from more than 14 or 15 down?
No, Aaron Rodgers is not
one of the lowest
a comeback quarterback. Eric Rodgers is more of a guy who's got to get out front first.
Yeah, I think
he doesn't come back much either.
But, all right, so my big question on all this is not the New England Patriots, Luis. It is can the Atlanta Falcons recover from this? I mean, you're up 25, 18 minutes left in the Super Bowl, and you think you've got it won. That has to be demoralizing.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I was demoralized for them. You know, I'm like, man, what a shocker. You know, to be sitting on the sidelines up, 28-6 or whatever it was.
Yeah, 28-3 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter.
Getting that Super Bowl money, game-winning Super Bowl money, your Super Bowl rings, endorsements, you're already thinking in your mind, man, this is about to go down. and to have it end like that, you know, it's going to take some time for them to recuperate. But obviously, you know, they have a great coaching staff, and they have a very talented and confident team, and I expect them to be very good Super Bowl contenders in the next 3 to 5 years.
All right, same
Luis,
question,
I'm not
Matt.
sure if you. Oh.
We'll get to you, Jamil. We're going to give everybody the same question on this one. Go ahead, Matt.
What was the question again? What the Falcons?
Yeah, can the Falcons recover from this?
Oh, yeah. I think they can. I guess it depends on what you mean by recover. But I agree with Luis. I think they've got a really good chance over the next 3 or 4 years to be heavy contenders in the NFC. I don't think the NFC is super strong to begin with. They have an MVP quarterback. You know, the other thing that we didn't really talk about was what a huge injury it was to lose Tevin Coleman. And, I think the pass blocking really went down, and he was such a big part of that 1-2 punch. And with Freeman and Coleman back there, you can really build around that, especially with Julio Jones, and now they got all these other receivers. Offensively, I don't think they're going to really miss a beat. They're going to have to do some things differently with a different coordinator, obviously. But Dan Quinn is a really, really smart coach, and they've got a good defensive nucleus, a lot of young guys there. I expect them to be heavily competing for the NFC Championship over the next 3 years. I mean, will they win the Super Bowl?
The 49ers are no threat to them, Matt.
Okay. Not yet.
For everybody that doesn't know, Matt's a 49er fan, and it's not yet. It's going to be a long
time. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. He's like that, Tom. Jamil, your opinion on the Falcons and how they recover from this, or if they recover?
They don't recover. How many teams have lost both coordinators and made a return back to the NFC Championship game the following season? None.
Well, and the other thing is this, how many teams lose both coordinators and recover from it at all? I mean, if you look at the Bengals, they lose both coordinators. They lose a coordinator almost every year, and they've gotten worse.
If there's one thing I know about Sarkisian, he's thinking about the next job already. This is just going to be a stepping stone for him to possibly get his own job. This is the rehab.
Yeah, but I think that almost every coordinator's like that.
No, there's guys like Tom Moore. They get in the spot.
I said almost.
They stay almost. There's guys, a lot of guys like that. I think this window closes. He's also he's a little gimpy. Sometimes he's a little gimpy, and we know it. He's gonna give you about 8 games of 100+ yards. He's gonna miss 3 games because of a hammy or a toe or an ankle. And you can't. When you're elite, you just can't have that. You got to be there. On top of that, I just don't trust that defense. Outside of Vic Beasley, Jones, and Neal, what Trufant comes back next year, let's just hope Trufant comes back to his level. You still got to figure out if Alford really a number 2. Well, if he comes back, it's according to what you can get
in the draft and free agency. Because I do think they're only a few players away.
Again, next year, if the Falcons fall to 7-9, I'll believe it. The Saints are still going to score a bunch of points. Cam is still Cam. And believe it or not, Tampa is making every move to position himself to be that next NFC team that takes the next step.
Oh, yeah, I think Tampa's the team that's the most I thought Tampa was going to possibly be that team this year until they ran into the back-to-back teams or back-to-back games with the Cowboys, and I forget who it was, where they lost them in the last minute. But I think Tampa Bay is a huge threat. I think it'll be a great battle between those two teams. I think Atlanta probably is still maybe a wild card team next year, but I just wonder what happens in the years down the road past that. But the one thing I will give them is this. I think Dan Quinn's a hell of a coach, and I think if anybody can figure it out, it's him. Tom, same question.
I was just about to make that point. You got Dan Quinn, who's a heck of a coach, and I think he won't let that team it's going to hurt. I mean, there's no way about it, but by the time they get back next year, sometimes it turns out to be a little extra motivation, too. That kind of gets under your skin and burns, and it gets you going for next season. So, with the Atlanta's offense, I don't see them dropping off as much. I think they can make defensive improvements this offseason. I think there's still going to be a power next year. As long as you got a quarterback like Matt Ryan, you got a chance to win a Super Bowl every year.
Yeah, and the thing is this. The question about Matt Ryan before was what's he ever done in the playoffs? I think the way he played in the Super Bowl answered that question, Luis. You there, Luis?
I'm sorry, Mike. What was the question again?
Well, I don't remember by now, Luis. No, my question was this. Matt Ryan, the questions coming into this season were, could he play as well in the playoffs as he does in the regular season? I think even though he lost in the Super Bowl, I think the way he performed in the Super Bowl answered a lot of questions about him.
Oh, without question. Without question. He lived up to the Matty Ice mantra that he's always had. He lived up to it. He proved it. MVP season proved to be one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league right now.
Yeah, and there's no San Francisco 49ers in that group, Matt, or Chicago
no
Bears.
Bengals either. No Bengals either.
Yeah, there are. Andy Dalton. He's better than anything Chicago or San Francisco's got. Chicago and San Francisco would kill to have Andy Dalton.
Yeah, it's not going to get you a playoff win, though, Mike.
No, we wouldn't. Because
you'd rather just keep getting your ass kicked every year?
We went 3-13 this year with Cuddy. He might get us to 5-11. Andy,
yeah, I know.
He's probably
Andy
the cream of.
Terrible quarterback. I know.
No, he's the cream of the third quarterback group. He's the cream of the third quarterback group. If you can't really afford to get one of those first guys and those second emerging guys, Cam Newton's in that second group.
He's in the second group. So
Andy
the guy that completes 54% of his passes is in the second group. And a guy that has had more losing records than winning records is in the second group.
Record coaching, it's taken a while for Cam to actually come around. They're starting to tailor-made that. It's going to be getting the ball out a lot quicker. Andy sits back and he's still playing that nice TCU offense where he takes that shot downfield to A.J. every once in a while, but he's just looking to check down. That's all he's looking to do.
Yeah.
What he's averaging, 9.7 yards in an attempt? Come on. Where's he? If that.
Yeah, well, I'll take the guy that wins more than the guy that loses. But let's go. We'll have that discussion later. Right. We got plenty more shows to do. But, Luis, I know you were a 3-time Pro Bowler, probably one of the greatest Cardinal linemen of all time. What's your opinion of the Hall of Fame process, how you get into the Hall of Fame? Do you think a guy like Terrell Owens belongs in the Hall of Fame?
Well, I think from a statistic standpoint, his body of work speaks very, very highly, definitely Hall of Fame statistics. hard to understand other than the persona that T.O. had during the years that he played. Maybe that has something to do with why he hasn't been elected yet.
Yeah, but should it have something to do with it?
No.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know?
Yeah, so I mean, I actually felt stupid just asking you the question whether Terrell Owens should be in the Hall of Fame or not.
Absolutely not. He definitely belongs in the Hall of Fame. And I think that sometime in the near future they ought to allow players, maybe the Hall of Fame elected players, to have some kind of vote. I think
that's what we talked about last week on the show. I mean, they do it for the Heisman Trophy. If you win the Heisman, you get a vote. Why not do it for the Hall of Fame that way?
Absolutely.
That's exactly how it should be done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you need a sports writer like Gary Myers. Gary Myers is a writer in New York that represents the Jets. The guy's an absolute idiot. I mean, he's a guy that wrote a book about Brady and Belichick. He was going to be on our show, if you remember, Matt. I talked to him, and he is a blithering idiot. And, I mean, I know like 3 or 4 other people that have radio shows that had him on and said he's a horrible guest. He has no clue what he's doing. He has no clue what he's watching when he watches a football game. I mean, most of these sports writers have never coached in a football game at any level unless it's their son's peewee team. And hardly any of them even played high school football, much less played college or in the NFL. So I don't see what qualifies these guys, because they sat on their ass and watched football for the last 20 years, to vote on who's in the Hall of Fame, man.
That's exactly right. Exactly. I don't have any problem with having a group of sports writers that has maybe a partial say at best. But to me, it really ought to be coming down from players and coaches that played the game and were at that level themselves. I think players and coaches that are in the Hall of Fame ought to have the majority of the say here, not the sports writers.
All right, Tom?
The Baseball Hall of Fame Senior Committee tried that once. It didn't work very well because they wouldn't vote anybody in, because they wanted to be their own little private club. So I don't know if that necessarily helps as much when you're looking at players voting for the Hall of Fame. But then you look at the other way, and Terrell Owens, how can you keep him out? He's 30 career touchdowns. I mean, his receiving yards are incredible. But this is a group that found a way to keep Marvin Harrison out for 3 seasons.
Yeah, but you might as well keep Marvin Harrison out if you're not going to let T.O. in. I mean, if you look at the guys that aren't in the Hall of Fame that should be, I mean, a guy like Robert Brazile, that we've had on this show a few times, I mean, the guy was one of the greatest outside linebackers of all time.
Yeah.
He was a linebacker on the all-decade team in the 70s, but yet you're telling me he's not a Hall of Famer? I mean, his first 8 years, all 8 years Pro Bowl. I mean, if you go and watch on YouTube his highlight film, I think it was like the Tums Neutralizer of the Year, you watch that highlight film, he was Lawrence Taylor before Lawrence Taylor was. I mean, Luis, I know you remember Robert.
Oh, absolutely. He was. I was at the beginning of my career. He was ending his career when I played. Was it Houston Oilers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Houston Oilers. All kinds of talent, great teams, and one of the players that should be given strong consideration for Hall of Fame election.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just every year. Now you're down to the point where you're letting guys like Jerry Jones in the freaking Hall of Fame.
Oh, God, that was terrible.
That is an absolute joke. He is just the NFL's money man anyways. The only thing he ever accomplished was lining all the owners' pockets, because he sued them at one point about the rights for merchandising and everything.
Yes. And
then they say he builds Jerry's World. How the hell could it be Jerry's World when it's $1 billion stadium and he only paid for like 55% of it? I mean, the people of Dallas, Jamil, paid $450 million to build something called Jerry's World. That make any sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. But that was shameful. That was shameful to watch them get into the Hall of Fame, and T.O. not get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well, how about this? Jimmy Johnson's still not in the Hall of Fame and doesn't even sniff it. Jimmy Johnson's the only reason Jerry Jones ever did anything positive.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
I mean, Jimmy Johnson's won 2. You tell me this. Here's my big one. Tom Flores, who we interviewed about a year and a half ago on the show. Tom Flores coached 2 teams that won Super Bowls. He is one of the top 10 passers in AFL history still. He was an assistant coach that won a Super Bowl. I mean, the guy's done about everything he could possibly do. He doesn't even get brought up, but they get some asshole like Jerry Jones and they put him in.
Also, a guy like Marv Levy, who never won anything.
No, he lost 4 Super Bowls. Now, the difference is this. I do believe Don Coryell belongs in because a lot of the stuff Don Coryell brought to the NFL still uses. You know, the tight end in motion, the wide receivers in motion all over the place. You didn't see that a lot, especially side-to-side motion, until Coryell got there. So Coryell was innovative. And plus, Coryell took the Cardinals to the playoffs a couple times, and Luis will tell you it's hard to get to the playoffs with the Cardinals.
Absolutely. I can't argue that point.
Yeah. Well, he had Jim Hart, so, yeah. I mean, he made Jim Hart a quarterback. He made Dan Fouts a quarterback.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and that's another one. You know, Dan Fouts gets in the Hall of Fame, but he never even got to the Super Bowl. The sports writers I've talked to tell me Kenny Anderson doesn't get voted on because he didn't win the Super Bowl. Kenny Anderson beat Dan Fouts to get to the Super Bowl.
I know, yes.
And he was MVP of the league once and led the league in passing 4 times. But
yeah, you could do a whole show about guys who haven't made it.
Oh, we have before. We
got
have
to get Roger. One, you got to get Roger
We've done it twice. There's still shows we could do about other guys that haven't got in yet that probably deserve it.
You got to get Roger Craig in. You got to get Steven Atwater in. You got to get Jerry Kramer in. There's a backlog of guys you just got to get in.
We talked to Roger Craig and Jerry Kramer.
I was shocked Atwater did not make it to the finalist list this year because he's definitely a guy who has to go in. He's got plenty of numbers to go in on.
But all right, well, we'll have these conversations in later shows if you guys want. We'll go ahead and we'll wrap it up for tonight because.
Can I ask you something real quick though? What did you think about Terrell Davis getting it?
I think he should be. He was one of the greatest running backs I ever saw, which should be what qualifies you for the NFL Hall of Fame.
Because that's the thing. A lot of people say he wasn't great enough, long enough. But
well, he won an NFL MVP, didn't he? And a Super Bowl MVP. Yeah, he ran for 2,000
in my opinion, he was one of the most dominant running backs in NFL history for 3 seasons.
So was Tatum Bell. So was Mike Anderson. So was Clinton Portis. Anyway, man, you can put me behind
Mike
Tom
Anderson and Clinton Portis were nowhere near what Terrell
Tatum Bell. Think of all the
Terrell Davis was a whole.
They put the same numbers up. In the same system, these guys put the same numbers up. I could get 1,200 yards behind Tom Nalen. Come on, Matt Lepsis. I can get the same numbers behind those guys. If you're chopping everyone in front of you. If you chop everyone, you chop every man in front of me and let me pick a hole. Chop every guy in front of me and let me pick a hole. I'm good for 1,100 behind that.
Mike Anderson had the same stats as Terrell Davis.
I'm going to say he had 2-3 years of 1,500 yards. Tatum Bell put up another 1,400 over a couple years. Clinton Portis did the same. Olandis Gary did the same thing.
There's a huge difference between 1,400 yards and 2,000 yards.
He did 2,000
and they sat Terrell Davis down a lot of those games. He had 2,500 yards that year.
Hey, guys, so Chris Johnson's getting in too, right? Chris Johnson had a 2,000-yard season. He's a Hall of Famer. I know it, right? Absolutely.
He had 4 years over 1,000 yards. His last 3 years, he ran for 1,600, 1,800, and over 2,000. He averaged 5 yards a carry and scored 49 touchdowns in 3 seasons as a running back.
And then look at his playoff numbers.
Yeah. I mean, a Super Bowl MVP makes you a little bit different.
In 3 quarters.
He
ran for 160 yards in 3 quarters of Super Bowl 32. He doesn't get his head knocked out. They blow the Packers completely out.
You know, he's the reason why Elway gets his 2 Super Bowls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're going to forget the string of running backs who continue the same thing with way less.
Nobody's denying that it was a good system. Maybe they just drafted good running backs for 3 years.
But they're not Terrell Davis. Sean Alexander gets in the Hall of Fame. He put up close to 2,030 touchdowns. Come on, man. Priest Holmes, I
Terrell
guess he should
Davis
get
was
into.
flat
He had
out
1,800
dominant.
yards.
None of
Priest
those
Holmes
guys
had
were
30
Super Bowl
touchdowns a year.
MVP.
Come on, man. Come on. What's a 3 or 4 year run? Then Mike Vick
What's
gets
a 3 or 4 year run is the best running
Mike
back
Vick
in the
gets
NFL?
Michael Vick gets in then.
Who was that?
Michael Vick should get in because what he brought to the game. He changed the game.
No.
How about it? If we're just going to start giving it to guys for short runs, then we're just going to put them in.
What was that?
That's it. We're just going to start letting guys in. Let's just let guys in for whatever the hell they brought to the table then, right?
So Mike Vick belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Sure. If Terrell Davis gets in for 3 or 4 years and what Mike Vick did for 5, 6 years, absolutely. And then comes back at
So
the
Gale Sayers doesn't belong in the Hall of
up.
Fame, though.
Well, I was about to say he got the Gale Sayers exception this year.
What about Gale Sayers? If Terrell Davis doesn't belong in, how's Gale Sayers in?
You know, I'm going to make the before my time argument. Then there was a great Brian song.
No, you can't do that.
I'll make the before my time argument.
Very convenient. Very
How about
convenient.
this argument? All right, hold on. How about this argument? Michael Vick had how many years did Michael Vick even throw for 3,000 yards?
Maybe one?
Maybe 3. Maybe 3. Yeah, what?
No, he threw for 3,000 yards twice, 3,018, 3,303. How many times did he throw for 20 touchdowns in a season?
I'm going to say once.
Yeah. So how's that a Hall of Famer?
He did it. He changed the game. Instead of now leaving that fast kid out of the receiver and seeing what he can do. Everyone's looking for a quarterback with a little wiggle now. He doesn't have to run the 4-2-4, but everyone needs a quarterback with a little wiggle. And that's exactly what he brought.
Randall Cunningham did that.
Those Drew Brees guys.
Why does everybody want to draft Mitch Trubisky in the first round this year then? He don't have no wiggle.
Oh, he definitely has wiggle. What do you mean? He runs in that up-tempo spread. He ran for about 400 or 500 yards this year.
At North Carolina. Now tell me where he got the 405 yards. How many yards did he run against top 25 teams? I mean, so you're comparing Mitch Trubisky athletically to Michael Vick.
Not comparing him to Michael Vick. I'm saying that you need a little wiggle. Aaron Rodgers has a little wiggle. You just need a guy who can move around. Trevor Siemian, little wiggle. A guy that moves around just enough.
But that has nothing to do with Michael Vick.
Wait a second. What about John Elway? He didn't give wiggle?
Oh, absolutely he did.
Steve Young? And I'll tell you this, Mitch Trubisky, I'm just looking up his stats. In 3 years, he's ran for 400 yards at 3.7 yards a carry.
He only played 1 year. He backed up Marcus Williams. My thing is, if you couldn't beat out Marquise Williams, then it's kind of hard for me to say you're going to be a top 5 pick, personally.
Yeah, but also the fact that he ran for 300 yards this last year on 100 carries tells me he ain't got much wiggle. And I don't care how much wiggle you got. You give me a guy like Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady that can move around in the pocket correctly and not get sacked, that's the guy I want. I think Michael Vick had a crap load of talent. I think he could have been a great quarterback, and it just didn't happen. I mean, he made a mistake. I don't know if his mistake should put you in jail for 2 years, but he did. I mean, I saw him play back-to-back games in 2006 against the Bengals and Steelers where he played better than any quarterback I ever saw. The problem was he wasn't consistent with it.
Yeah. He had a world of talent, though.
Well, look at his 02 season. He was fantastic in 02. Then he gets the injury, and I don't know, he just never really materialized.
How about the year coming back with Andy Reid? That's one of the greatest years I've ever seen him for a quarterback, personally, running and passing. Well over 60% completion percentage. Come on. And he got it.
What year was this?
You're saying 2010.
2010? I think that was one of his 3,000-yard seasons, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a great season, but it wasn't a Hall of Fame season.
No, not a Hall of Fame season, not at all. But it was a hell of a season. Great season. To think that this man came from playing wall ball in prison to coming out and being an elite starter in the NFL, I mean, come on, that means a lot.
Well, nobody here said that he wasn't a good quarterback. We're just you're the one that said Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame, I don't know.
If we're just throwing in guys who did it for a couple years, then let's start getting in these guys.
Yeah, but Michael Vick didn't
that's
do
not
it
what we're doing.
like
Michael Vick never won an MVP or anything. Terrell Davis was flat out dominant for those seasons. Just dominant.
Absolutely. And again, to my argument, so was Landis Gary, Mike Anderson, Tatum Bell.
Landis Gary was not dominant. Landis Gary didn't have to run for 1,000 yards. Mike Anderson ran for 1,400 yards in the year 2000, and I wouldn't say those guys were dominant. They had good seasons. Terrell Davis was dominant.
All right, behind the system that I'm just gonna say behind the system that was run, I feel like I could have got 1,000 my damn self.
It's not that hard to run for 1,000 yards.
All right, so what do you? This is Mike Anderson. Mike Anderson in 2000 ran for 1,400 yards. In 2001, playing in 16 games, he ran for 600. 2002, playing in 15 games, he ran for 400. There's no way.
It's 1 year.
There's no way you can compare somebody that had one good year to a guy that won an NFL MVP,
and
a Super Bowl,
and
ran for over 1,600 yards 3 straight years.
Look at Orlando Scary in 1999. I guarantee you it wasn't more than 1,100 yards. He was good, but come on. In 1 year. You can't compare that to what
But you did bring up one person from that Bronco team that should be in the Hall of Fame, and it's Tom Nalen.
Yeah, Nalen was fantastic.
He was an anchor.
But we just have somebody come
Luis is coming back.
Oh, okay.
Luis,
That's where Luis went. I wonder why you were so quiet.
I thought Luis was done with us.
Luis Terrell Davis. You think he's a Hall of Famer?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the most dominant players. And listen to John Elway express his gratitude. A guy who was started off as a special team on the kickoff coverage team and finally given a chance to start, and what he meant as a teammate, as a leader on that team. I had absolutely all the credentials, Hall of Fame selection.
So, Jamil, do you want to argue that with him?
No, it seems like we're just going to give
you're
this
arguing
guy
with the NFL guy now.
Look, again, we're just going to give this guy 4. So I feel like Priest Holmes gets in. I can just name a lot of guys who had good 3-4 year runs. Let's let them get in.
None of them had 3 or 4 year runs like Terrell Davis.
I don't think you can name anybody that had 3 or 4 year run like Terrell Davis. Maybe Gale Sayers, and that's why he's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and even Gale Sayers didn't have the Super Bowl MVP.
Exactly. Never didn't crack. Well, he did hit 1,000 yards, but you just can't. You're not going to find. Sean Alexander is not the same kind of guy. And I'm not saying Sean Alexander shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, but he wasn't as dominant as Terrell Davis was.
He's taking up a guy's spot who put in the time. Corey Dillon kind of guy. He's taking up someone's time. He's taking up someone's spot. Someone who actually did it over a course of an entire career.
All right. Corey Dillon was never the best running back in the NFL. I'm a huge Corey Dillon fan. And I think this. I think that there is a case to be made for Corey Dillon to be in the Hall of Fame because of his career. It's not going to happen because reporters didn't like him because he wasn't nice to them all the time, but who the hell could be nice for anybody playing in Cincinnati for Mike Brown? But Corey Dillon still did not do the things Terrell Davis did, even though he only played 3 or 4 years. And when I watch him play, Terrell Davis was better. And, the NFL Hall of Fame to me is not a Lifetime Achievement Award. It's why, Brett Favre doesn't impress me. Yeah, he has the most touchdowns. He also has the most turnovers. So when it comes down to it, I just want the greatest players I ever saw in the Hall of Fame.
Well, that's why I thought Morton Anderson was the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yeah, that was nice, but come on. Over Terrell Owens, Roger Craig, Robert Brazil, that was insane.
Yeah, but hell, they let Jerry Jones in. They might as well let a kicker in.
Right.
The biggest joke is the fact that Jan Stenerud's in there, and he made like 53% of the kicks in his entire career.
The perception is that he made 100%.
What was that, Tom?
Stenerud changed the game. He was one of the first of the soccer style that really kind of brought it out into NFL, brought it out. When Stenerud and Yepremian and those guys started coming in, that's when the square toe started going out.
But the thing about Stenerud is this. Probably the biggest kicks he ever took in his life were in that 71 playoff game against Miami, and he shanked 2 easy field goals.
Yeah, I won't argue that.
So, this changing the game thing, Pete Gogolak's the one that changed the game. He was the first
Pete Gogolak, right.
But he's not in the Hall of Fame.
But in that Super Bowl...
Arian Foster? Is Arian Foster deserving then?
No.
Same kind of run.
I don't think he's one of the greatest running backs in football. You think Arian Foster is one of the greatest running backs you ever saw?
Over his short time, his short period, he's one of the most dominant backs for his short time. And at one season, he was the best back in football.
So he was an NFL MVP, Super Bowl MVP. These are the things that I think you're missing. This guy
Yeah.
Ran for over 2,000 yards in a season. He scored 49 touchdowns in 3 years. And he ran for, 5,000 yards, almost 6,000 yards in 3 years.
Yeah.
With an outlier 2,000-yard season was in a great system.
Hey, you know what? I don't think there's ever been too many running backs. Arian Foster was in a great system to run the ball with a good offensive line.
It was the same system, 6,500 yards, 2,300
exactly.
Receiving yards in his career.
You also can't do this. You can't give me a top 10 quarterback of all time that didn't play in a great system with great players around him. You can't give me an all-time great, or not too many all-time greats, that were not in great systems and great situations. You know, if Tom Brady gets drafted by the Cleveland Browns in 2000, 2001, whatever it was, what would his career have been? If Joe Montana would have been a Tampa Bay Buccaneer in 1980, how does his career turn out? So it's really unfair to say that he did it because of the people around him, because everybody's like that. That's why every Hall of Famer says, I'm here because of the guys that I played with.
All right. Sometimes your talent can supersede your situation.
What was that?
Sometimes your talent can just supersede the situation. If you're that talented, sometimes you can outwit the situation.
Well, yeah, I guess you can. There's some guys that have, but there's not that many. But I'm just saying, it's like the Joe Montana argument. Well, he won because he had Jerry Rice. He won because he was a great quarterback. I mean, maybe he doesn't win as many Super Bowls.
Doesn't hurt having Jerry Rice. Doesn't
hurt
having
having 2 Super Bowls without Jerry Rice.
Doesn't hurt having all your ideas bounced off Bill Walsh. Doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt. But once again, how many great quarterbacks were there that didn't have great head coaches?
All the great ones had a great coach.
All the great ones have had a great coach.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it's your situation. I mean, if you put
Jim
Roy Dillon in New England at the start of his career, he's probably a no-doubt Hall of Famer, Jamil.
Absolutely. But
you got to go
like Jim Caldwell. Jim Caldwell's record is going to be inflated because he was just the coach of a Peyton Manning team. So I can't really, I can't really say that. Though. But again, now look what his record is going to be with Matt Stafford, another great quarterback in this generation. Look what it's going to be. Like, come on.
It's not going to be very good because he's going to be fired by the end of next year, probably. He should have been fired already.
He's not going to crash the car. He just drives it. He's not going to crash it. That's why he keeps his job.
Oh, he crashed it this year, I thought, but they pretty much flamed out at the end of the year. And he couldn't keep the job in Indianapolis. Of course, that was Peyton Manning left too. But
absolutely.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. And I think we rejoin this next week if you want, guys. I don't know about you, Matt, but I think we can make it go.
Sure. Yeah.
Any final words, Jamil?
No, bear down. See you guys next week.
Bear down. That's like me saying here today. Hell, everybody laughs when they hear that from Bengals and Bears fans. Tom?
Hey, bear down. No.
Bear down.
And I know both of you guys still think the greatest Super Bowl ever played was Super Bowl 20. So
you know it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, Tom, final words?
Heck of a discussion. I thought it turned out great. I enjoyed it. So I didn't mean to kick off such a discussion about Terrell Davis, though.
Yeah, we were supposed to be done 20 minutes ago. What the hell? All right, Matt, any final words?
Yeah, first, Tom and Jamil, appreciate you guys coming on. Good to meet you guys, and look forward to talking to you guys soon. Luis, always good to talk to you. Hope to have you back at some point, and I really enjoyed myself tonight.
All right, Luis?
Yeah, always a pleasure with you guys. I'm always enlightened. I always learn something I did not know before. Keeps me up to date and fresh on my sports knowledge. And I'd like to ask you that are praying people to continue to lift my son in prayer as God's will is being done in his life. Thank you. I had fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, hopefully everything works out well for your son. I mean, I know he's a good kid. He's a heck of a football player, too, just like his dad was. As always, Luis, it was a great honor to have you on the show. Anytime we got a three-time Pro Bowler on the show, it's always an honor. We always learn from you, too. You played the game before at that level, and, of course, none of us did. Matt could have, but he didn't even play Pee Wee football, so he lost out there.
No, I had a knee injury when I was 4, and I was done.
He fell out of the crib when he was 4 and never was.
Never recovered.
But Jamel, I always screw this up. It's Jamel, right?
Yes, sir.
There you go.
Okay.
I'm rolling now.
Jamel.
But make sure you guys check them out, him and Tom, on the Chicago Bears podcast. Hopefully it'll be starting that here in the next week or two, so make sure you check that out. I want to thank Matt, as always, for coming on the show and tying with me. We've done that 2 years in a row now. It's getting kind of boring, Matt.
Yeah, one of us has to win next year.
Yeah, so that'll be me, because next year I'm going to try all year instead of taking a few weeks off.
Well, you did
so
say that this year, and that didn't work out so well.
I know, but your feelings start getting hurt, and you won't answer my calls.
Well, I will say this, Mike. I always appreciate that you're looking out for my feelings.
Always. I don't want to hurt your feelings too bad. I know how you guys are, especially being a 49er fan.
Yeah, we do tend to weep.
Hey, at least you got as your new head coach the guy that completely screwed up the Super Bowl over a fourth quarter. So you've got that in your corner. It makes him probably better than your last 2 coaches.
Well, I think it'll fuel him to get back to the big show. So something you guys have never done.
We've been to the big show twice.
Sure, you've been there. That's true. I shouldn't have said that. That was mean. I should have been looking out for your feelings there.
Yeah. See, I always look out for yours, but you don't look out for mine.
I know. See, I got to learn from you. I see that learning to do.
Well, don't learn from me. You learn all the wrong things. At least that's what all the parents in the street used to tell my parents. But, all right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Make sure you check out all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Google Music, Stitcher, Spreaker, anywhere you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. Check us out at thegruelingtruth.net. You can follow us on Twitter at GruelingTruth. Make sure you check out all of our shows. Our boxing show, which we did tonight, previewing the Robert Easter and the Rashawn Warren fights tomorrow night in Toledo, Ohio. Also, Monday night, we interviewed bantamweight champion Rasheed Warren. So that's about it from here. I want to thank, as always, Luis Sharpe, Jamel. I was going to screw your name up again.
Jamel.
Jamel. I know. I was going to, but I started to say Jamil again. I don't know why I want to say Jamil, but.
Got it.
So, Tom Pollin, Matt Andruscavage, of course. Huh?
Pollin.
See, now I screwed your name up.
There you go.
Bill Pollin?
But we'll just do it like this. For Luis Sharpe, those other guys, Matt Andruscavage, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.